much, everybody. I'm Lane Bangeter, State Director of Trump for President. We're so excited to have Donald Trump Jr. here today in Gentry Beach. We're going to give about 10 or 15 minutes media availability to hear Mr. Trump today. So thank you very much.
Great.
Gentry, you want to say anything?
I think we're great. Thank you.
Donald Trump Jr., everybody. Thank you.
How you doing? Yes. Thank you, guys. Well, great to be here in Idaho. I love making it out west. I always joke I'm the first graduate of the Wharton School of Finance to move to Colorado to be a bartender. I did that for about a year and a half right after school. So I love the West. I love the Western states. I'm a big outdoorsman. So I was always drawn to this part of the world, and just excited to be here. It's really nice to be in a state where we're up by, I believe, 50. We shouldn't spend that much time in a state where you're up by 50, but I think we just want to thank the people who've been so supportive of everything that we've done, who've been helping us out here and frankly in all the other Western states, and we just wanted to thank them and encourage them to keep going, as we're always going to keep going. So maybe I'll open it up and talk,
Mr. Trump, a question, please. Idaho has taken in many Syrian refugees, and this is a peaceful, low-crime state, nice place to live. Doesn't that fly in the face of what you and your father have been suggesting about the impact of refugees on society?
No, I don't think at all. I mean, I know I've read some stuff about it lately that hasn't been as flattering, but I think, in the end, what we want is we're all for immigration, but we're all for legal immigration. I'm the son of an immigrant. My father's the son of an immigrant, but we have to be able to vet the people coming into our country. We can't do it haphazardly. We owe that to our children and to our grandchildren. We owe that to all Americans, and so until we're able to do that, and it's known, and we've been told, and everyone has said, there's no way of vetting. Right now, our vetting process consists of asking the friends of people who are coming in whether they're good people or not. I don't know if that passes any sort of reasonable smell test for us. So we're all for immigration, but it has to be done legally and it has to be done intelligently.
Were you surprised by the reaction to your Skittles tweet? Where did that idea come from?
No, I saw it. I thought it was it was a good metaphor, and that's all it is. But I guess I am surprised by the reaction, simply because it is a metaphor for risk and probability, and we have to be careful about those things. But I understand that I guess running as a conservative is a different standard. You've seen the media organizations add words to quotes that my fathers are saying while subtracting them from our opponents to try to change the narrative and the dialect. So I've gotten used to the fact that it's not a fair fight, and it won't be, and we'll just have to deal with that and keep going. And it's why candidly, there is less than a third of Americans trust the news media, because everything is about creating some sort of snarky comment, creating some sort of media following. It's no longer about reporting the news. It's about controversy to get picked up. And I think that does a big disservice to the people who are actually trying to get educated and inform themselves about what's going on.
Along those lines, do you have any concern that you have become a distraction at any point over the last couple of weeks of the campaign?
Well, I'm not trying to be a distraction. I'm trying to point out things that have to be said. I think my father's done a good enough job with that. I think he's created some good dialogue that needed to be had, that wasn't being had because PC culture sort of forced real issues off of the table. And so I think the way he's been able to approach that and do that is force people to actually have a dialogue, and that's what this country is about. It's having that dialogue, not only having a dialogue that conforms to PC norms, but actually having real discourse. We're not a country where everything has to be in a safe space. That's not what built this country. That's not what made this country great. And I think that's why my father's resonating so well with working class, hard-working Americans, the men and women who built this country. He's giving them a voice again, and that's a voice of common sense. And candidly, common sense has been totally taken out of the equation in DC. It's, it used to be government of the people, by the people, for the people. Now it's of the elite, by the elite, for the elite. That's why all the zip codes around Washington, D.C. are the richest in the country, while the rest of the country hasn't seen a pay raise in 20 years effectively. And that's disgusting, and we got to change that. You have bureaucrats creating problems that only they can fix, making millions doing that. It's just not, it's not what it's about. And so what we want to do is infuse that common sense back into government, back into DC. I think we need that. And again, it's why this is not a bipartisan, this is a partisan issue. I mean, both sides do this. This isn't Republicans don't do it, but Democrats do. I mean, DC has gotten very comfortable doing this, maintaining and living in their own little ecosystem, hollowed away from the rest of the world. And I couldn't be more honored to be part of my father's campaign. And again, I'm not a politician. I haven't been doing this. I build buildings for a living. But I see what he does, I see what he's doing, I see who he's resonating with, and it's why he's been able to get so many voters from the other side. People across the spectrum to say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. To have a guy who's actually created real jobs, talking about job creation, as opposed to politicians talking about it like it's this magical unicorn. We just push a button and it just appears. You know, he's actually done this. He's had people's livelihoods and their families' well-being dependent on his success and the success of his company. So he's done that time and time again, and I know he'll do that for this country.
Do you have any regrets about sending that tweet and using that particular method?
Listen, I don't want it to be a distraction, but you know, to me, it was a simple metaphor. You know, people will today make what they want of anything, and they see the worst in everything, and they look for subtext that doesn't exist. For me, you know, I guess I'm a straightforward guy. You know, I don't deal in microaggression where, you know, it takes a special kind of person to find, you know, whatever message they're looking for. So, you know, I don't want to be a distraction, but again, my message was, you know, very simple. We just have to be careful about what we're doing in this country.
You called a group of people poisonous.
I didn't call people poisonous. I used
Do you
it.
think that that's potentially dangerous considering the divide? In the
No,
country?
I think our opponent called, let's call it 100 million Americans deplorables for being sick of watching Washington, D.C. ship their jobs abroad, for racking up debt that we can't possibly cover. If we ran our households like the government runs this country, we'd all be living on the streets. So, you know, if a metaphor offends someone, I can understand that, and maybe that's the world in which we live today. But I'm not comparing someone to candy. I'm using it as it's a statistical thing. We have to be careful who we let in this country. You've seen what's going on in Europe. You've seen what's going on, and it's not just about terrorists. This is about the rape statistics that have gone on there. We have to be able to know who we're coming in our country, and we owe that to our children and grandchildren.
With the debate on Monday, how do you expect it to differ from the Republican ones we saw? And you know, what's your father doing to prepare for that?
Well, listen, he's been spending a lot of time. Again, he's not a politician. He's been doing this for a year now, and he's learning, and he's doing pretty damn well. I mean, he's done, you know, let's call it, if we're neck and neck, and many places showing we're actually ahead. You know, we've done that with 1/10 the staff, probably 1/10 the budget, a lot less of that Goldman Sachs kind of money. And we just last week broke the all-time record for a GOP candidate in small dollar donations, sort of actually very, you know, Bernie Sanders-esque. The real hardworking Americans getting an average check of $63. You know what? That to me means more than any of the other stuff, because that's the people we're actually speaking to. Those are the people who are disappointed in government and what it's done to them. And so to have those people doing that, guess what? That $63 means a lot more to that family than the $1 million does to the billionaire writing it to Hillary. And so, you know, to me, that's what this is all about. That's what we're fighting for, and you know, that's the most important. So it's just been an honor to be a part of that.
We'll take one more question.
Politico and the you said that you wanted to work for the Department of the Interior.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues you'll be dealing with is water. Your father said turn on the tap. What's your water policy, and how do you interpret prior appropriation?
Oh, so you have a lot of Western issues. Obviously, you have water, you have land issues. I think we've broken away from conservative dogma a little bit on that, and especially as it relates to land. In that we want to make sure that public lands stay public. I'm a big outdoorsman, I'm a big hunter. When I lived out here, that's what I hunted on, public land, and I want to make sure that, you know, the next generation has you know, that ability to do that. So we don't want to we want to encourage more involvement of the states, the people who are there. We don't want bureaucrats in DC deciding what happens on those lands, but we also don't want to haphazardly sell them to fund a budget deficit on a state level, and every state's a little bit different, where they make up a shortfall 1 minute, and then all of a sudden you never have access to those lands ever again. And so
when it comes to water, would you pursue water markets? Would you follow pirate?
Listen, there are a lot of. When I say I want to be involved in the Department of the Interior, I want to be involved in helping pick a great team, people who do this. You know, I build buildings in New York, but I'm also an avid fly fisherman. I sit on the board of Boone and Crockett.
Is there a water policy out there?
There is. We have. You can speak to the policy team as it relates to the specifics of it, but you know, we do have to balance a lot of things, and part of our land use policy is also a multi-use purpose. We have to have access, but we also have to be able to have energy. We have to be able to have grazing. And there are examples in places where people have had the best of all those worlds. And so we have to make sure we preserve that and make sure that it's available for the people. But yes, listen, the Western issues on water, it's a big one. You know, here and, you know, certainly as you go further south and west. So, you know, it is out there, and you can speak to the policy guys on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
We have an aggressive schedule.
Thank you very much.